Good morning. I'm Jay Lenore Bressler, and welcome to the December 5th, 2024 edition of the Bible Delight in the Details. We're going to talk today about being alone. Yes, there are times when you are alone, and there are times when you really feel very alone. It's fascinating that in the ancient Hebrew, there are two terms used for being alone. One is a happy aloneness, one where you are content, somewhat similar to the word that in English is solitude. Solitude can be a very wonderful, helpful, and yes, resting status. Sometimes you need to be alone. It helps to calm. It helps to get you focused back on the things that you care about, which may or may not necessarily be what other people want to fill their time with. It's a wonderful time to meditate, to look back on things and just become rejuvenated and restored. So there's certainly times when we are alone and we are very happy to be alone. Solitude can be a very contented and needed state. But then there is another word in the Hebrew for being alone, and that is more akin to what we would call loneliness. This is the unhappy state of being alone. And I want you to think about the things that we usually say around being lonely. We probably say, I'm all alone. Nobody understands me. Nobody cares. Nobody loves me in the way I want to be loved. Nobody appreciates me. Sound familiar? And it's that kind of, or nobody's like me. I'm just sort of the odd person out. It's these kinds of feelings that are associated with loneliness. And as many of us know, you can be extremely lonely in the middle of a crowd. In fact, I think sometimes that's the most keenly felt loneliness, when you realize that it's not about just getting in the midst of other people. That is not necessarily the solution to that kind of loneliness. Well, it's fascinating to me that the Hebrew word for alone is used often in the Psalms by King David. But what is fascinating is this. When he uses the lonely Hebrew version of the word alone, it is always immediately followed by a request for God's presence, asking God to draw near. And I want you to think about that. If you know the Lord, are you ever really alone? And the answer, of course, is no, never. All you need to do is perceive his presence more keenly. And yes, ask the Holy Spirit to enliven your senses, both your physical and your mental, your emotional, and your metaphysical, your spiritual senses, to feel his presence. Here's something else that's fascinating to me. The word in the Hebrew that we would translate as the happy aloneness, the solitude, actually carries the connotation of completeness, of being content because you have everything that you need within yourself. Now, you could take that in a very arrogant kind of way, like I'm all that in a bag of chips and I don't need anything in anybody. But I think we know from David that he knows that if it's only him, he is lonely. But with God, if God is with you, how can you ever need anything? God is always there. God is the one who understands you. God is the one who loves you in the best total way. There is no way that God's love will ever fail you, not just in quantity, but in quality. If you ever feel like people don't understand you or aren't like you, why don't you just go to God? Because first of all, he made you in his image. And so you may be actually crying out for God and thinking that you need to find things about God in other people. And maybe that's why you're lonely. And maybe that's why you don't feel complete. It's a wonderful thing to know that you can be in solitude, the contented state of aloneness, because the secret is you really aren't alone. You are with that person, and never forget God is a person, a personality, not just some force of nature. He is a person who does love you, who understands you, who loves to be with you. After all, he died so he could be with you and you could be with him. Go sometimes in the confidence that when you're alone, you can be in solitude, complete, contented state of aloneness, because you're really not alone. I'm J. Lenora Bressler. Visit me on the next edition of the Bible, Delight in the Details. Make it a great day.